The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor at exactly 8:43 p.m. In the ballroom of the Riverside Grand Hotel, 200 guests in black tie attire turned to watch Beatrice Wellington, CEO of Wellington Industries, 52 years old, hair perfectly coiffed, stare at the projector screen where her darkest secret had just appeared in 40-point font. But the worst part wasn't the gasps echoing through the room. It was the woman standing at the back, finger still on the remote, wearing the same navy dress her brother had been buried in 7 years ago. 7 years earlier, the Wellington estate sat on 14 acres of Connecticut coastline, where old money whispered through hedge-trimmed gardens. Beatrice ruled the family business with an iron fist wrapped in Hermes scarves. Her younger brother, Wesley, age 28, had just been named CFO, the first real challenge to her absolute control in 20 years. Stella Wellington, their younger sister, age 24, had always been the peacekeeper. She'd watched Beatrice critique Wesley's reports at Sunday dinners, her voice honey-sweet but laced with poison. "Darling brother, perhaps we should double-check these projections? You know how creative your math can be." Wesley would laugh it off, but Stella saw the tightness around his eyes. 3 specific incidents should have been red flags. First, Beatrice accidentally forwarded an email chain to the board where Wesley had questioned a land deal, making him look insubordinate when he was actually identifying fraud. Second, she restructured his department, stripping away his support staff, then blamed him publicly when projects fell behind. Third, at the annual shareholder meeting, she presented concerns about financial irregularities in his division, vague enough to plant doubt, specific enough to damage credibility. The call came on a Tuesday morning in March. Wesley's assistant, Penelope, found him unresponsive in his office. The preliminary talk screen showed lethal levels of prescription anxiety medication mixed with alcohol. The police ruled it accidental overdose within 48 hours. Stella stood in Wesley's apartment 3 days after the funeral, her hands shaking as she sorted through boxes. That's when she found the notebook, black leather, 127 pages of meticulous handwriting. Wesley had documented everything: dates, times, recordings of conversations, screenshots of deleted emails, photographic evidence of altered documents. He'd been building a case against Beatrice for embezzlement. $4.3 million siphoned through shell companies over 6 years. The final entry was dated 2 days before his death. "B knows I'm close. Meeting her tomorrow to give her one chance to come clean. If anything happens to me, Stella, this is all yours. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Protect yourself." Stella's throat tightened as she read the words again. The notebook slipped from her fingers, landing open to a page of bank statements with Beatrice's personal account highlighted in yellow. She picked up her phone to call the police, finger hovering over the keypad. Then she set it down, because she realized something. The police had already closed the case. Beatrice had been on the board for 15 years. She played tennis with the mayor. Her lawyer was a family friend of 3 generations. A 24-year-old junior marketing associate with a notebook full of accusations wouldn't stand a chance. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Stella's feet as understanding crystallized. If she wanted justice for Wesley, she'd have to become someone else entirely. Stella spent 6 weeks analyzing every page of Wesley's research. She made copies of everything, stored the originals in 3 separate safety deposit boxes across 2 states. Then she did something that felt like swallowing glass. She went to Beatrice and apologized. "I've been so angry," Stella said in Beatrice's corner office, voice carefully breaking. "But Wesley wouldn't want us divided. He loved this family. He loved you." Beatrice's face softened, or performed softness. Stella was learning to see the difference. "Oh, darling, come here." The hug felt like embracing a cobra. Over the next 7 years, Stella executed her plan with surgical precision. Year 1, she took an entry-level position at Wellington Industries, worked late, volunteered for every thankless task, made herself indispensable to Beatrice while staying completely invisible to everyone else. Year 2, she enrolled in night classes, accounting, corporate law, forensic finance. Her apartment walls became covered in flowcharts tracking money through shell corporations. Year 3, Beatrice promoted her to executive assistant. Now Stella had access to everything: calendars, emails, private files, board communications. She built her own evidence archive, more comprehensive than Wesley's, 300-plus pages documenting every fraudulent transaction. Year 4. She befriended the IT director, Gretchen, during smoke breaks neither of them actually needed. Just needed air became their code for information exchange. Gretchen, it turned out, had noticed irregularities years ago but been shut down. She became Stella's inside source for digital forensics. Year 5. Stella identified 2 other victims, junior executives Beatrice had systematically destroyed. One had left the industry entirely. The other, Monica Reeves, was now a financial crimes prosecutor for the state. They met in a coffee shop in Hartford, and Monica said 3 words that changed everything. I never forgot. Year 6. The trap was set. Stella orchestrated her own promotion to VP of Strategic Development, high enough to have legitimate access to everything, low enough to not threaten Beatrice. She started planting breadcrumbs for the board, gentle questions about accounting discrepancies that made them wonder without accusing. Year 7. The evidence was irrefutable. The witnesses were ready. The prosecutor had opened an official investigation. Now she just needed the perfect stage. The Wellington Industries' 75th anniversary gala was Beatrice's crowning achievement. 200 guests, board members, investors, politicians, 3 state senators, and the governor. The event had been planned for 18 months, every detail reflecting Beatrice's vision of legacy and power. Stella had volunteered to manage the audiovisual presentation. Let me take this off your plate. You have so much to worry about. Beatrice had squeezed her hand gratefully. The presentation was scheduled for 8:45 p.m., right after dinner, before dancing. A celebration of Wellington family values, integrity, loyalty, excellence. At 8:43 p.m., as Beatrice stood to give her speech, Stella pressed a different button on the remote, the screen filled with bank statements, transfer records, email chains. Wesley's face in a photograph dated 1 week before his death, stress written in every line. Then a video, security footage from Wesley's office building the night he died. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m. A figure entering his office with a master key. The footage was grainy, but the Hermes scarf was unmistakable. The ballroom went silent except for the sound of Beatrice's champagne glass hitting marble. What is this? Beatrice's voice cracked. She spun toward the AV booth where Stella stood illuminated by equipment lights. Stella picked up the microphone, her voice steady despite her racing heart. This is the evidence that my brother Wesley compiled before his death 7 years ago. Evidence of systematic embezzlement, fraud, and corporate malfeasance spanning 2 decades. She advanced the presentation. More documents filled the screen. Wesley died because he discovered you'd stolen $4.3 million from this company, from our family. He confronted you, and you killed him. The room erupted. Board members stood, shouting questions. Security moved toward the stage, uncertain who to restrain. Governor Martinez pulled out his phone. Beatrice's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful little... After everything I've done for you, I gave you a career. I brought you into leadership. You gave me access, Stella said quietly. That was your mistake. Beatrice lunged forward, but 2 security guards caught her arms. She was screaming now, the polished veneer completely shattered. He was weak. He was going to destroy everything our father built. Someone had to protect this family. The room went still. Did you? Board Chairman Harold Zimmerman stepped forward, face gray. Beatrice, are you confessing to— I protected us! Beatrice shrieked. I did what had to be done! Stella advanced the presentation one final time. Audio recording, crystal clear, digitally authenticated, submitted to the State Attorney General's office 3 hours ago. Beatrice's voice. Wesley won't be a problem anymore. Make sure the talk screen shows the right results. We have people at the medical examiner's office. An unknown voice. And if there are questions? Beatrice. There won't be. I've already established his mental health concerns with the family. Everyone will believe he was unstable. The recording was dated 2 days after Wesley's death. Monica Reeves emerged from the crowd, prosecutor's badge held high. Behind her, 6 federal agents moved through the ballroom doors. Beatrice Wellington, you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. The trial lasted 11 weeks. Stella testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every document, every transaction, every lie. She'd memorized all 300 pages of evidence, dates, amounts, account numbers. The defense attorney tried to break her, suggesting obsession, mental instability, revenge fantasy. Stella simply replied, My brother documented fraud. He was murdered for it. I spent 7 years ensuring no one could deny the truth. That's not obsession. That's justice. The defense tried to discredit the security footage. Too grainy, wrong timestamps, chain of custody issues. But Gretchen, the IT director, testified about the building's backup systems. Every deletion was logged. Every attempt to alter files was recorded. 4 other former employees testified about Beatrice's pattern of destroying anyone who questioned her. Wesley wasn't the first person she'd crushed, just the first she'd killed. The financial forensics expert traced every dollar through 17 shell companies, 12 offshore accounts, and 6 years of falsified records. The numbers matched Wesley's notebook exactly. But the most damaging testimony came from Dr. Philippe Durand, the medical examiner who'd performed Wesley's autopsy. On day 47 of the trial, he admitted he'd been pressured to rule the death accidental. Mrs. Wellington called me personally, he said, voice barely audible. She suggested my contract renewal might be complicated if I created unnecessary problems for the family. The courtroom gasped. She didn't explicitly threaten you? The prosecutor asked. She didn't have to. Everyone knows the Wellingtons control half the appointments in this county. He looked at Stella. I'm sorry. I was a coward. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. 35 years without possibility of parole. Stella stood at Wesley's grave on the 7-year anniversary of his death. Spring was turning the cemetery green, and someone had planted wildflowers near the headstone, purple and gold, Wesley's favorite colors. She'd sold her shares in Wellington Industries. The company was being restructured under new leadership, with Gretchen as chief compliance officer and strict oversight from the reconstituted board. The embezzled funds were being recovered and distributed to pensioners who'd been shortchanged for years. Monica Reeves appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might be here. They stood in silence for a moment. Do you feel better? Monica finally asked. Now that it's done? Stella considered the question. 7 years of planning, hiding, pretending. 7 years of hugging the woman who murdered her brother. 7 years of becoming someone else to ensure justice prevailed. I don't know if better is the right word, she said slowly. Wesley is still gone. 7 years of his life, of our lives, were stolen. Nothing changes that. But, Monica prompted, but he's not forgotten, and she can't hurt anyone else. Stella touched the headstone. He wrote in his notebook that truth matters, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. A breeze rustled the wildflowers. "What will you do now?" Monica asked. Stella pulled an envelope from her jacket. "Acceptance letter to law school. Full scholarship. Starting fall semester. I'm going to make sure other people's brothers don't end up in graves because someone powerful decided they were inconvenient." Monica smiled. "He'd be proud." "Yeah," Stella's voice caught. "Yeah, he would." As they walked back to their cars, Stella glanced back one final time. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the cemetery. But Wesley's grave was still touched by light, the wildflowers bright against the stone. 7 years ago, she'd stood in his apartment and made a choice: to become patient, to become calculating, to sacrifice years of her life for one moment of truth. Some revenge is served cold. Some revenge is served 7 years cold, at exactly 8:43 p.m., in front of 200 witnesses. And sometimes, that's exactly what justice looks like.